G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast, coming at you with another fantasy playoff preview, week 21. Let's go.
Jordan open. Chicago with the lead. Bryant to Shaq.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
LeBron James with no regard for human life. Anything's possible.
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Curry for three. Wow! Unbelievable. Making it rain in New York. We the North are now we the champions.
Not the destination, it's the journey. Mamba out.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at BallBoysNBA and at Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball on Instagram. Joined as always with the great, the one and only Callum Mack. How are you, man?
Yeah, doing well, I guess overall, but a little bit upset that my team was knocked out in the home tournament that has yours truly and myself in it. And,
Yes.
and same as you.
Yeah.
So we've both been taken out of the mix here. It's sad to see.
Yeah, early exit for us. Both. Look, obviously we've got good fantasy managers in our league that have been playing for. Geez, what are we in now? But I think this was our 10th season.
It's our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, so the decade this season. So players that have been playing fantasy basketball for a long time. We all sort of know each other's tricks and trades, but we were the victim, both of us, of a bit of bad luck, which is, I guess, a bit of the equation when it comes to fantasy playoff time. So we do always need to keep that in mind. So yeah, what happened with tell the listeners what happened with your season and anything that you can take away or that listeners can take away from how it all shaked out.
My team, I think this is one of the things we had as a bit of a point to end last fantasy season, because I think health kind of took it away. And right now in this day and age, in this season specifically, that there's a lot of health issues. Once again, a lot of people are going out. My team had the likes of Anthony Davis, who couldn't be playing. I did have to drop him to pick up some other people. I also lost Anthony Edwards this week. And Jalen Green, I think, only really put one game in for me, unfortunately. Yeah. With some injuries too. That being said, my opponent also had a bit of an injury bug, like we all somewhat do. I think he definitely had Paul George out. I do remember noting that that was his second pick. So it made us pretty even in the end. It was a pretty close one. It came down to 5-4 victory in the Nine Cats. It was very close. I also was obviously managing the Kyrie Irving thing. He's on my team and he didn't play very well this week. Put up a 50-piece today, so it would have been good to get through to the next round. But look, it is what it is.
Yeah, I know. You hate it when you see those big games and you think, oh man, if I had just made it, I would have made use of that. But of course, it's just one day too late for you. So yeah, bit of a shame there. I've got a bit of a horror story for my knockout. Probably my most unlucky beat I think that I've ever experienced as a part of fantasy in my 10-year time. But so. Obviously, we're in a 10-team league in our home league setup, and it's top 6 that go through to the playoffs. Top 2 teams have a bye, and obviously the other 4 teams are battling it out. So I finished the season tied with the team that I versed in the first round. So we both tied on the exact same record, about 10 games behind first place. However, I think in the last week before the season ended, I was versing you to get into the playoffs. Now, obviously, you were on the 6th spot, and you were quite close to the 7th team. So you were going hard with the streams, like hitting that week really hard to make sure you went in. I was comfortably, at the time, I think I was sitting actually 3rd in the standings there. So I was sort of just waiting. I had a few injured guys. I wasn't bothered streaming or anything like that. So I was just kind of chilling, didn't use any of my acquisitions. You beat me fairly convincingly that week.
I went all out. I will say, I knew you had a good team there. Your team is built to, I guess, win 5-4. It's an ultra small lineup.
Yeah.
And based on that, I thought I could sneak the steals, and I did pick up my maximum 4 out of 4 waiver wire ads. They got a lot of steals for me. They paid off, got a lot of threes to boost me, and I did end up having a pretty good victory against you. I think it was 7-2. In the end, I had a pretty hot week as well. I was pretty lucky there. sometimes that happens in week-to-week basis.
And it's obviously the All-Star weekend as well, so there's a lot of things that go into occasion. A lot of players sometimes wrestling at the All-Star weekend. I think Darius Garland was out for me for a little while, and players like OG Anunoby were out. So I wasn't too concerned, but that obviously dropped me down to 5th place because I had the same record as the 4th team, but because my last week, our tiebreaker on that is that the worst most recent week goes second compared to the better most recent week. So with the same record, I finished 5th, he finished 4th. Then in the playoffs, in this matchup, at the end of it all, we finished tied 4-4. We tie in assists. As the kicker, I also had RJ Barrett on my bench in the last game. I strategically tried to bench him because we were really close in free throw percentage. I think at the start of the day, I was actually losing free throw percentage. Took that category over after a few Pascal Siakam misses. I was ahead fairly comfortably in assists at the start of the day. I think I was ahead by like 40 or 35 assists. So I was feeling good in that category. I bench RJ Barrett as I go to work. Not too concerned. But of course, big assist games from a lot of unlucky candidates like a Kyle Kuzma, who put up 8 assists that day, and a few of these other random guys. Catches me in assists, and of course, just to rub salt in the wound, RJ Barrett goes 7 for 7 from the free throw line, and I would have won that category regardless. So I could have won assists, so we tie on assists, and then again, the tiebreaker is highest seed moves through. The only reason he's the highest seed is because of the last tiebreaker where I finished with a worse record the week before. So essentially, I lose because of a tiebreaker as a result of another tiebreaker. So I was pretty gutted.
How was the result of that tiebreaker? So I've done this to you, Mitch.
Yeah. So essentially, you've knocked me out of the fantasy playoffs. Looking at my team right now, I don't know how much further I would have gotten anyway. My team is actually quite ravaged, just with a lot of just not long-term injuries, but a lot of just players who are out with all these niggles. Like, I had Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby on my team. Both were supposed to have 5-game weeks. Fred VanVleet was game-time decisions 5 times this week and didn't suit up for any of the games. Players like Jalen Suggs, Anthony Simons, D'Angelo Russell, all these guys are missing time. I had Lonzo Ball injured, obviously. So it was just a bit of a miserable time, and I don't know if I would have progressed any further anyway, so this is all just a reminder that obviously we're in the fantasy playoffs. We're talking a lot of head-to-head stuff, but luck does play a huge role in it. And, as prepared as you can be, you can have one of your first-round guys, your second-round guys, or multiple guys go down. And that's just what it comes down to. You can prepare as best you can. We're going to give you as much opportunity as you can in terms of all the ads and things that you can do. But remember, it is a game at the end of the day. Luck does play a big role, and you just got to kind of roll with those punches and suit up for next year.
Yeah, that's it. You got to be able to take the hits, right? I would just say quickly your tiebreaker story that remind me of one of my own tiebreaker stories back in 2017. I was up against the number 1 seed and put up a pretty good fight. I was feeling pretty confident on the last day there because one of the players he streamed was the second-year Quinn Cook. I did double-check this. Quinn Cook for Golden State.
There's a throwback name for 2017.
Absolute no name. I looked at his game history. He had played about 30 games before that and registered his first ever career block to tie blocks against me on the last day.
Yeah.
And being a 4-4 tie and first in the number 1 seed, he won the tiebreaker based off the seed. So that one hurt a bit too.
Oh, man. You always remember those bad beats, like first ever career block to tie the category. I remember losing by 1 block to another team when I think he streamed in a Jeremy Lamb who was averaging 0.1 blocks on the season. And on their last Sunday, just gets that random block that he hasn't had for 3 months prior. And it's just, it's always these.
Well, Quinn Cook's career average for blocks is 0.0. So low it doesn't even register. So
he probably just had that one block, that one game, man, and that sunk you. So let us know in the comment section on the YouTube channel. Let us know if you've ever had like a really bad beat. I would love to hear these stories, and it's a safe space, guys. We can share it along and support each other. We'll get us through to the next season. But for those of you who are still in the playoffs and still looking to fight it out and go for that championship, we're going to help you out. So we're going to move on to the preview of the fantasy playoff week 21. Looking at this week, it is a really strange week. Probably one of the worst weeks in terms of streaming value that I can remember, really. If we look at the week, Miami Heat is a team that we do want to highlight because they only have 2 games this week. Every other team has either 3 or 4 games. They have one quality game on the Tuesday where there's a low volume 4-game slate, and then their second game is on a high volume Friday, which has got 12 games. So with your players such as like your Robinson, PJ Tucker, Strus, or any of those other guys, I think that they are clear drops for this week. And even someone like a Tyler Hero, after that that quality game on the Tuesday where you've got 4 games, when you get to a Friday, you might not be rostering Tyler Hero because he might be outside of your top 10 best players. So you might even, if you plan ahead and see that he's not going to be someone that you put on your roster, you might even be able to, if it's your last week or something like that, he might be even someone that you need to drop and stream that position through. So keep an eye on those guys and just be aware. Obviously with the Jimmy Butlers, your Bam Adebayos and all those kind of guys, you just got to kind of cop that. But it is a bit of a crap week for the Miami Heat. Let's go on to, so we're looking at these quality games, and this is where I say that the games get a bit weird. So we've got a clear schedule of high volume days and low volume days. So Monday we've got 9 games, which is sort of right on the edge of being able to add someone in. So some people might be able to add some people in. Some people might have a full roster on that day. Tuesday, 4 games. You'll be able to stream someone in there easily. Wednesday, we've got a big slate with 12, so I doubt that many of you will be able to get any ads in and use them on the Wednesday. Thursday, there's just the 1 game, so we'll talk about that in a second. And Friday, there's another slate of 12 games. Again, probably not going to add anyone there. And on the weekend, we've got Saturday with 4 and Sunday with 9. So again, on that Sunday, it's a bit up to your individual team and how it's stacked up and what teams you've got players on. So we're really looking at only maybe 3 to 4 days where you can actually make an ad and use that streaming position to your advantage. Otherwise, most of the other days, you're just going to be rolling with your best 10 players that you can. So probably a week where the streaming value is a bit lower than a normal week. And even more so highlighted when we get into our back-to-backs. What are your thoughts in general in terms of the value of streaming this week, Callum?
I think this week you really have to be really careful of who you're actually rostering. Because I dare say on the Wednesday and Friday, you're probably going to have over your 10-player max.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to be up to date with who's actually playing. You don't want to have one of those late game scratches who is out, and you had someone that could actually fill in the roster. That those do hurt, especially in a playoff time.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you're obviously looking at these days where there are a bit of duds. So Tuesday and Saturday, I'm definitely kind of looking in. But there's someone there on the Thursday that can help you. There's only the 1 game. You could probably find someone on the stream, but definitely the Tuesday, Saturday are kind of what I'm homing in on players who are playing those couple of days.
Yeah, so and we're going to get into these back-to-backs in a second, but you might find that like you only really need 4 ads for this week, so you don't even really need to attack the back-to-backs necessarily. What I would be doing is identifying the stats that you think you're going to be close in and really go ahead and plan your week out on, in an ideal situation, who are going to be your start sits. So say, for example, if you know that you're probably not going to be competitive in points and threes, for example. If we go back to that Tyler Hero situation, if you go ahead and plan ahead to Friday, you might notice that, okay, I'm not going to be competitive. This team's going to be way better at me in points and threes, but I need to get some steals. I need to get some blocks. Well, then Tyler Hero is not going to help you. So you might know that you're going to put him on your bench. He's not going to be in a starting roster spot. So as soon as that Tuesday comes and he gets that 1 game on the Tuesday, well then, okay, let's look to add someone in on that Thursday and use Tyler Hero as a drop potentially, because you're not going to use him for the rest of the week. So identifying early on which players you're going to be using on those high volume days, which ones are just going to be sitting on the bench, can be really important in terms of making the most out of the guys who stay on your roster. It's not necessarily, especially if it's your last week or it's a really close matchup, it's not necessarily keeping your dropping your worst players. It's dropping the players that are going to help you this week the least, if that makes sense. So let's go on to the back-to-backs anyway, but you're going to find out soon that there's really not much value to this one because, okay, we start with the Monday, Tuesday. No back-to-backs. No team has a back-to-back. So, you can make your ad on a Monday if you can fit someone in, and then you're going to be dropping them potentially the next day and picking someone up for the Tuesday. We do have what we call pseudo back-to-back on the Tuesday and Thursday. So again, Wednesday we've got 12 games. Probably not going to add anyone there. But on the Tuesday and Thursday, we've got two teams that have the back-to-backs. It is the only two teams that are playing on the Thursday, the Detroit Pistons and the Orlando Magic. So we've got a few guys that we can highlight here. Cal, who are some guys that we're looking at from the Detroit Pistons?
So from the Detroit Pistons, I do like Marvin Bagley. I think we spoke about him beforehand. He's been okay since he's gotten there, and can be someone that can be a bit of a surprise in points and rebounds. He's got a 19 and 10. Really good stat line, actually, last game. Really good field goal, 56%. He got 36 minutes. He's playing big minutes. It is a pretty good sign.
Yeah, he's playing big minutes with Stewart out, who's out injured at the moment. I'm not sure how long he is injured for, but it is worth monitoring the fact that he's going to get a extended run while he's out at the moment. So he is definitely someone who I think is a strong stream in that position.
And then you got like of Kelly Olynyk, the playoff MVP of the season past.
Yeah.
So he's actually been kind of playing pretty well recently too. He always comes out around this time of the year. I do say that, and look, past 3 games hasn't been great, but there was that 20 piece about a week ago, and he can put that up.
He'll come in and have these really big games, and then he'll go quiet again. So it is a bit of pick your poison, but in terms of like the streaming days, especially on that Thursday, like it's the only game that's on. I think in terms of upside and if we talk about luck again, he's someone that could, if you get lucky, could give you a decent stat line if he gets decent minutes, or even he doesn't even need decent minutes, like 25 minutes, he can put up some really big stat lines. And again, if I highlight Stewart is out, if he is out come those lower volume days, then he is probably going to get a bit more of a run in a team like the Pistons. And then I want to highlight as well Killian Hayes as someone who does have a bit of value in 2 categories in assists and steals. He's horrible in the percentages. He won't give you much else. But again, if you highlight early on in your week that those matchups are going to be good ones, and you don't want to lose based on a tiebreaker because you tie in assists, then he is someone that you could identify and get 2 games with 1 ad, and especially with the 1 game on the Thursday, he's probably going to be one of the highest assist guys on the day. Let's talk about the team that they're versing, the Orlando Magic. Again, pseudo back-to-back on the Tuesday, and the only other team playing on the Thursday. Who are we looking at Orlando at the moment?
I'll do a bit of a shout-out to Franz Wagner's brother. I believe it's Moritz Wagner.
Yeah,
Wagner, whatever it is.
I'll just go with Mo Wagner.
He's had a couple of pretty good games recently, been getting minutes, put up a 17 and 11, 12 and 7. After that, he can hit threes for a big man as well. So he's someone to probably have on your watch list for that day. I think he, in terms of points, the odd 3 and rebounds, he can be pretty useful. His free throw percentage has actually been really good over the past couple of weeks. He has attempted 4.5 a game and shot 89% of it. So that's going to help you there too.
Yeah, I think his numbers over the past little bit were boosted with, I think it was...
It's pretty much just those 2 games that I mentioned. So
it was Wendell Carter was out for one of them, but then he did come back, Wendell Carter, in the most recent game at time of recording, and Wagner still put up a decent stat line in more limited minutes, so he could still be useful even if Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba are healthy.
Yep, and then otherwise, Gary Harris, he's probably always worth adding if you need the steals, if you're kind of desperate there. And threes. It's pretty much just threes and steals is really all his value is.
Yeah, he gets decent minutes, so anyone who gets decent minutes, you can sort of, luck into a couple of steals there as well. I also want to shout out Chuma Okeke, who is actually putting up some really good stats right now. He's still only rostered in 51% of Yahoo leagues. I think that should be a lot higher. He's someone who can get you as high as 4 steals a game and has done that on multiple occasions in the past month. Some decent rebounds and assists as well for a power forward eligible player. So he is someone that I do like. Just keep in mind that his, percentages are not the best. Free throw percentage is actually not too bad, but field goal can sort of hurt you. But other than that, he's a pretty he's a pretty solid guy that I think you can stream in, and probably one of the best steal streamers going around. And also a shout out to Markelle Fultz, who is someone who is currently out at the moment, but I expect that come next week he should be back. And if he is in the roster and playing in the lineups, he should be able to give you some good assists and maybe a trickle of points here and there as well. But just again, be aware of the free throw percentage and perhaps the turnovers as well there, if those are categories that you are maybe fighting it out for. And let's go on to the rest of the week. It's going to be pretty boring rest of this segment. So Thursday and Friday, the only back-to-back that we have is again the Detroit Pistons. So if you maybe wanted to add one of the Pistons earlier on the week and save some of your ads for the Saturday, Sunday, the weekend, and really just see where you're at, that might be an option that you go. Maybe add a Pistons and an Orlando Magic player earlier on the week, save 2 ads for the weekend. That might be the best way to go. And then the Saturday, Sunday again, there's no back-to-backs. So really difficult week to stream. You're really only looking at those 2 teams in terms of the Pistons or the Orlando Magic to maximize the back-to-backs. Otherwise, you're going to be in control and you're going to be making sure that you're looking at your team, who's going to be the best 10 players on any given day. If you can fill someone in on that Monday or perhaps on the Sunday as well, where there's 9 games, you can maybe add one of those guys, then add on the Tuesday a Pistons player or a Magic player. Get yourself through to the weekend and keep yourself rolling with an extra ad up your sleeve, just to sort of, in case you've got a tight matchup in a certain category, just to get you over the line. But because there's not much information in terms of the back-to-backs, I want to highlight some players who, in particular this week, that you can afford to drop in order to stream players. I'm highlighting a few teams here that have players that are playing on high-volume days. So let's look at a few of these teams here, Cal. I'll run it first, and then I'll get you to give me the next team. So the Boston Celtics are a team that, again, play on the high-volume days. They're playing on the Wednesday, 12 games. The Friday, 12 games. Sunday, 9 games. So perhaps you're not going to be able to use someone like a Derek White. So in terms of early in the week, you're probably not even going to be able to use him until Sunday, because I don't think he's going to be in your top 10 best players. So I would have no hesitation dropping Derek White, especially early in the week, to get some acquisitions in there. So let's go over to the Chicago Bulls. I'll just run through their week for you, Cal. But they play on the Monday, 9 games, the Wednesday, 12 games, and the Friday, 12 games. So really it's only that Monday that you might be able to stream a player in, or one of those back-end guys. Who's some names that you think we can afford to live without from the Chicago Bulls?
So some people like the Kobe Whites of the world, even though he's been getting minutes for some of the injuries, he pretty much really is more just the points and threes. Yeah. And his overall, he's still kind of coming off the bench. He does fit that 6-man role. Might start a couple with the injuries, not knowing the Chicago Bulls, but even then. And then Larry Markkinen.
Sorry, I know you're reading off the chart I made you, but I think I meant to have that in the next team, because obviously Larry Markkinen is not on the Chicago Bulls. He is obviously on the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I think, Kobe White was probably the big name there. If I look at the Chicago Bulls, you've obviously got, your Zach LaVines and things like that. Now they're clearly going to be in your top 10 best players. DeRozan, Vucevic. Not sure if Caruso is going to be back, but even if he is coming back, he's probably not someone I'd bother picking up. And everyone else, what about Ayo Dosunmu? Do you think that he would typically be in someone's top 10 players?
He's probably up there because he's 52% rostered. So he's out there. He is obtainable. If it's going to be close in steals, he's definitely worth holding on to.
Assists.
And assists as well. That's probably his 2 most productive categories would be assists and steals.
Yeah, so he's the 98th ranked player in the past 2 weeks. So he's on the borderline. Again, it would depend if you need what he gives you. Again, so you might be using him on those high volume days if he does fit your top 10. So this is where it's going to be very team specific. So make sure you have a look at what your matchup is going to be and see if you're actually going to use Ayo this week at all. And if you're not, well then he's not useful for you, so you can drop him and bring someone else in that will. Let's go on to those Cleveland Cavs. Obviously, you mentioned Larry Markkinen before. Who else can we afford to move on and not lose any sleep over?
Kevin Love's one guy I've had streaming on and off for the year.
Yep.
He's a hot and cold guy, can have good games, probably not obviously worth investing in him if you can't even put him on the court. He's better players out there. So I wouldn't lose sleep over dropping him. Chetty Osman. He's another guy. He's always hovered around, I guess, maybe the 200-ish value, but can have, once again, bright spots like your Kevin Love and points and threes. But once again, I'm not losing sleep if I have to lose Chetty.
Yeah, so obviously we've got the injury to Jarrett Allen at the moment, so you might think that players like Larry Markkinen, players like Kevin Love and Chetty Osman all get a bit of a boost. I don't necessarily see it that clear cut. I would be holding someone like an Evan Mobley, however, and maybe Larry Markkinen if you're really desperate in points and threes, but outside of that, he really doesn't help you in any other category. So again, it's a bit more of a needs-specific hold. But yeah, Kevin Love, Chetty Osman, who we've already seen, in a game without Jarrett Allen there, was just putrid, played 12 minutes, absolutely destroyed your field goal percentage. So those guys, I think you can rest easy in terms of dropping them and getting another player in there. Let's go on to the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, again, players that the games they're playing on all the high volume days. They're playing on Monday, 9 games. Wednesday, 12 games. Friday, 12 games. And on Sunday, 9 games. So even though you get 4 games out of them this week, all 4 of them are have 9+ games on that day. So depending on your roster, you might not be able to use these guys. So players like Boogie Cousins, Will Barton even an Aaron Gordon. Those guys, in terms of if you don't need their points from Will and Aaron, not useful to you. You can probably get some better scorers in if you've got 10 other players suiting up for you on those high volume days. So wouldn't worry about holding on to them if they don't match your top 10 players on those high volume days. Let's talk about Golden State, Cal. Again, if we go to their roster, you're going to get sick of me reading out these names, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9, 12, and 9 games played on those days. Who are we dropping or not worrying about from Golden State?
Those guys who are just kind of on and off the waiver wire once again. So you Kuminga and Looney are definitely guys who you usually would be streaming. Kuminga for more of the defensive stats. I guess maybe a bit of field goal, and Looney for pretty much really just rebounds. Is why you're getting him. Those guys obviously are definitely expendable.
Yeah.
The last guy, Andrew Wiggins, the All-Star starter. All-Star starter.
The All-Star starting
has not been
Andrew
playing
Wiggins.
well after the All-Star break.
Yeah, quite bad, in fact. He's the 131st ranked player in the last 2 weeks, and he has been murdering your percentages. Absolutely murdering your percentages. Good steals and decent blocks. So defensive stats-wise, not too bad there, but a lot of negatives for Andrew Wiggins at the moment. So especially if those percentages are going to be close, maybe someone you can do without. And I do want to highlight again and go back to Kuminga. He has been playing really well recently, so you might be wondering, why am I dropping Kuminga? But there are reports, obviously, that Draymond Green is getting close to returning. I think they were saying in the next road trip, which is in the next sort of 6 to 7 days. So I think that he is going to be someone that cuts into, obviously, Kuminga's time. Someone also like Otto Porter Jr., if you've got him on your roster for some reason in a deeper league, he might be someone who's expendable as well. So on top of the fact that he might be outside your top 10 best players, Draymond Green's coming back and will dent his production. So if you don't need what he brings, I'm very happy to not hold on to him. I want to highlight the Clippers. I basically don't think you can hold any of them this week, really. I can't think of a single Clipper that I would really want to have on my roster this week. Again, they've got 3 games. 2 of them are on 12-game slates, and the first game is on the Monday. So maybe you hold them for the Monday if you need them, if you don't have 10 or more players playing. But after that, see ya. Is there a Clipper that you would want to stay on your roster at the moment, Cal, or am I being too harsh?
I think I agree with you. None of these guys are standing out at me, even though over the past 14 days, Robert Covington is the 25th ranked player. Those stats are not something I rely on because he's shooting 100% from the free throw line on 0.8 attempts a game. That's not helping you. 2.2 blocks. He can give you blocks if you need to stream that, but I guess if you're desperate in that matchup this week, you have to win blocks. It's probably the only reason why I probably would be keeping him. But there could even be better guys out there.
Yeah, he's also he's out for a personal reason right now, so I don't even know if he's going to be available next week. Again, we're recording this a little bit ahead of time, so it might be an easy decision for you to make with him out. But yeah, all of these guys, sure, they can go off any day, any moment, but in terms of relying on them as your best 10 players, I don't think that any of them fit the bill there in terms of, I'll plug them in and be confident that I'm going to get good stats. Talking about the Carmelo Anthony and the Lakers, Cal, are we holding Carmelo or any other Lakers in this week's slate?
I probably would not be. Obviously, you're holding to LeBron. You keep him tight
I'd
if you made it this far. But yeah, Carmelo Anthony, he's been a pretty good hot waiver ad as of late. Been hitting threes, been getting some pretty good points, trickle of defensive stats and rebounds as well, which is quite nice. But he'd have to be expendable during this time of year, especially if you have better players out there to put on your roster.
Yeah, he's been pretty good this year, and I'll tip my hat to Carmelo Anthony. He's kept up a higher production than I thought he would. He's still on the season, hasn't really been, a super valuable player in total, but he has held on to a little bit of value for the majority of the season. However, I still think that he's a low-end guy, not someone who I wanted to rely on very much. I'll give you a fun one there, Cal. What about Russell Westbrook? Are we holding Russell Westbrook? He's 99% rostered in Yahoo leagues. I bring this up because in the past 2 weeks, he's the 334th ranked player. Now, obviously, that's on the back on a whole bunch of turnovers and just putrid percentages. No threes at all. The steals and blocks are down. Even the assists are down now. So, is there any actual reason for us to hold on to Russell Westbrook anymore?
If you somehow built a roster that fits perfectly around points, rebounds, assists, and I guess you just have to go steals and blocks because the turnovers, the threes, the free throw percentage, and the field goal is atrocious.
Oh, so bad.
That's the only probably reason I probably would hold on to him, to be honest.
Yeah.
I will say, look, on a week-to-week basis, he's bound to have a really good game. He'll probably put up a big triple-double. It could push you over the edge in assists.
Yeah.
But then again, he could cost you in field goal at the same point in time. So double-edged sword, that man.
Look, I'm not going to go out and recommend you drop Russell Westbrook. However, if you really got into the stats and you knew that, for example, your free throw percentage is going to be really close, you know that the turnover is going to be close, or maybe you need some more threes, or it's not the worst thing in the world to drop Russell Westbrook. I really don't think it's there's so much talk. He might even move to the bench any day now. We've seen it for the entire season now. He's just not good at fantasy basketball. He's got so many deficiencies, and his upside is I just don't think it's worth it anymore. And the fact he's rostered in 99% of Yahoo leagues, I just think that's way too high. I think that there probably should be a little bit more drops out there. Now, it might not be right for your team because hopefully you've drafted him. He's on your team. You've at least accounted for some of those deficiencies. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if dropping Russell Westbrook ends up being the correct move in retrospect. I'll talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, a few guys here that you might have been streaming in most recent weeks. So some guys like Jaden McDaniels, Jared Vanderbilt, even a Patrick Beverley or a Malik Beasley. All these guys I think you can drop because, again, on the high volume days, they might not be within your top 10 best players, and they have 3 games this week with only 1 game on a slate less than 12 games, and that's the Monday with the 9. So feel free to move on with those guys after the 9-game slate if you can fit them in on that day. Any OKC players that you're holding on to, Callum? Is it just Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Is there anyone else that you think you can hold on to for this team for this week?
No, not really. I think it's got to be just Shai, right? I know we got some Poku fans out there, but if you held on to Poku this far, you're probably not in the playoffs.
Well, to be fair, he has been someone that's been on the radar as an ad, as a streaming kind of guy. He's putting up some decent stats recently across the board, but you do have to assess whether or not he is in your top 10 players. 91st player over the last 2 weeks in 26 minutes a game, and give me some decent stats. 11.5, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, nearly a steal and a block, but again, he's not that across the board production, especially when matchups are tight in certain categories, may not be worthwhile to you. So, I'm not sure if he is someone who is in the must hold kind of camp. What about Isaiah Roby, who again is someone who has been playing well as of late?
Yeah, he's been ranked 45th over the past couple of weeks. That is quite impressive. Great stats in terms of the percentages. About 55%, 83%.
6 rebounds.
From the free throw line. But outside of that, I guess the defensive stuff's there. It's kind of like an overall contributor. He is actually quite comparable to Poku.
Yeah.
Just putting up a little bit more points and better percentages, really. So there is probably more of a case for him. He has been getting the minutes as well. Maybe if he's he's probably been one of the lower spectrum of your top 10, but maybe he will wiggle in there and start a few games for you.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we're doing this section here is we just want to highlight to you guys that, like, be really honest with yourself, be really real with yourself, and go ahead and plan your week and look, okay, is Isaiah Roby, am I going to put him in my starting lineup on the Wednesday and the Friday? Because if not, you're not going to get much value out of him this week. So you're better off trying to stream in one of those Orlando Magic or the Pistons guys, or on another day when you can actually get an ad in. So we'll keep moving forward. We might run through these last few guys because I think you guys are getting the point now. But Matisse Thybulle on Philly, again, high volume days. Unless you need the steals and blocks, obviously he's a very specialist kind of player. So obviously if you need the steals and blocks, hold on to him. And if you can get him on your roster in terms of fielding him, then that's fine. No one on the Portland Trailblazers outside of Anthony Simons, I think, needs to be rostered at this stage. Anthony Simons, again, he's probably, I'd say he'd be in most people's top 10 players in terms of the value he brings in points, threes, and assists, so I'm okay with holding him. San Antonio, Keldon Johnson. He's been putting up some decent stats recently, but again, he's really only a points guy. So if you really think you're going to be close in points and you really want to boost that category, maybe you can hold on to him. But again, is he going to be in your top 10 point scorers, and is he going to give you the value in other categories on top of that? I question that, so I'm not sure if I would be holding on to him. Toronto Raptors. Anyone you're dropping from the Toronto Raptors? Obviously, we're coming off this, the week just gone has been the 5-game week. They don't have as many this current week, the week before the recording of this podcast. But are we dropping some players from the Toronto Raptors?
Yeah, Chris Boucher. I never picked him up this year. If you have him, he's worth dropping. Precious Achua, and Thad Young. All put up pretty similar stats, really, in the scheme of things.
Yeah, so if you've been streaming those guys, I don't think there's any point holding on to them. And Utah Jazz, a couple of guys here. Jordan Clarkson, Hassan Whiteside, and Royce O'Neal, I think, of course, probably not going to be in top 10 players. I wanted to get your thoughts on Mike Conley and what you can expect from him. He's been a bit down recently. Are you confident enough to expect him to be a top 10 contributor in 12-team leagues in people's teams, or is he maybe on the fringe as well? What are your thoughts on Mike Conley?
He's a little bit on the fringe, isn't he? He's had quite a few shockers the past couple.
Yeah.
But he can still give you assists and steals. So based on that logic, I probably still would just run it home with him, and just hope that it was a couple cold games.
Yeah. My thoughts are, if he is the worst guy and you need that spot, it's okay to drop him. I'd prefer to keep him because we know he can be a good contributor. And obviously, he gets the assists, which are hard to find. And he might just be going through a real cold streak right now, although we have seen him go on extended cold streaks in the past. So if, for example, it's your last week and it's your championship round, then for sure, I think Mike Conley is someone who's not an awful drop. Maybe if you've got an extra week and you're hoping he comes back good for that week, he might be someone you might want to hold on to. And there's probably someone worse on your roster that you can use as a streaming spot, but maybe in a 10-team league, for example, he might be your worst player. So just someone that I want to highlight that he's a bit of a household name, but I wouldn't lose too much sleep by dropping Mike Conley. And the last team here, the Washington Wizards, with an awful schedule. Daniel Gafford and Denny Avdia, who have been sort of a couple of hot names of the last couple of weeks. But again, with the return of Kristaps Porzingis, he's put a bit of dent in their value anyway. And I think that chances are they're not in your top 10 players. So I think you can feel free to move on from those guys. Any last bit of advice or words of wisdom, encouragement from you, Cal, before we wrap up the pod today, mate?
Just make sure you stream, guys. Stream on those. Look for the Tuesdays. Look for the Saturday. Get the guys on the Thursday. Look for a Detroit Piston. Look for a Magic guy if you get there first.
Yeah, gotta be quick.
Definitely reap the benefits.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be quick with those ones. So I would be trying to look to get those on the Tuesday, so you can get that pseudo back-to-back. So that's a good shout there, Cal. And to help yourself out, make sure you're following us on Twitter. That will help you out, guys. We'll pass over any news and any advice as soon as things drop. So follow us on Twitter at BallBoysNBA, and make sure you are subscribed to all the podcasts. Channels, the YouTube channel. On YouTube, make sure you hit the bell so you're notified when new things drop. And let us know in the comments if you have any questions or sob stories, and we will see you guys next week. Good luck. Bye.